Okay, thanks for your patience and thank you very much for attending this evening. The whole purpose of this evening is to give you as much information about the college process as we can, and every year at these events, every time we run these events, I learn something new myself. So if I'm learning something new and I've been doing this for many, many years, I'm sure you guys will learn a lot of things new. My name is Neil Powell. Barbara brought me in to run the elite program. I'm just taking over the college coordinator's job as well. So this is my first event, so don't yell at me too early. Just want to introduce the panel here. Before I do, these coaches give it their time, give it their evening here, away from their families and all those nice things. So let's give them a round of applause before we start. Okay, to start at the far side, we have Damian Brown. Damian's the head coach at Cal State Fullerton, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think 8 years as the head coach?
Yes, sir.
3 years as assistant prior to that, is that right?
Yes, sir.
I tried to do my homework on your website before. I think 4 NCAA tournament appearances, is that right, or is that wrong? Or are you not allowed to answer that?
This will be 5 this coming week.
Congratulations. And something happened very important for his program last night. Fullerton won the Big West tournament, so they go to the NCAA this week. So congratulations, David. Okay, next to him we seem to have the orange and blue relationship over there. We have Carlos Aguilar, who's the assistant at Cal State Fullerton on the men's side. Sorry, Damian's women's side. Got to make this clear. On the men's side, first year as assistant there. I don't know if you know, but a staff changed from a different college who will remain nameless until their coach speaks this summer, and he was a 3-year assistant there prior to moving there. So thank you for coming. Okay, Chris Volk, UC Irvine men's head coach, is next to Carlos. Chris was the assistant for 17 years, is that correct? That's a long time. And he just took over this summer the program there, and he's still in the Big West tournament and plays Wednesday against Santa Barbara. So congratulations on your first season. Okay, next we have Ron Pulvers. Ron here used to coach the men and the women at Cal State San Marcos, and now they're going Division II from NAIA. We'll explain all this later on. The job got too big, too much time, and I think you've got actually time to yourself now, which might be nice. So Ron's been there a long time. Here we go, I've got some stats for you. 9th season with the men, did 8 seasons with the women. With the men, a record of 76, 48, and I can't read my writing, it's 15. On the women, 89, 42, and 24. He was the NAIA Pacific Coach of the Year in 2010. Before that, what's the name of the school?
Baker University.
Okay, and that's in Kansas. And you were head coach there for what?
10 years.
Wow. With a big winning record there as well. And it's 5 years with the postseason with the men, 5th year with postseason, and 7th with we did 7 with the women as well. So not bad stats there. Okay, now we have a fair fellow Englishman here, Scott Juniper. I think Scott's the most organised person I know. And so Scott was the assistant at UC Irvine with April Heinrich, who was a former women's national team coach, just 1 year there, and then Scott took over as head coach. And 4 appearances in the NCAA since you've been there? 2, okay. Let's just call it 4. Yeah. And I think quarterfinalist 1 year as well. So oh, sorry, Sweet 16. There you go, overselling again. But that's quite an achievement as well, and we've completely turned the program around there. So we're very lucky to have Scott here with us. Next, most of you already know my boss. So John Suzuka here brought me into the program. You can talk for yourself. I know these guys can't say too much about their own program, so if you want to speak, you can.
No, we're just glad to have Neil putting on the night tonight. Every year, as Neil said, we learn something new. It's a little bit of a different, there's new updates, different spin, hopefully new knowledge to be learned and understood. You've got a great panel here. You've got some of the best coaches in the area, definitely the best colleges in the area. So hopefully this is a good night for you guys, and we'll continue to do this as we go throughout the year. So Neil, this being his first night, real appreciative of him getting it going. We just talked to him a couple weeks ago about doing it, and he got the word out right away, and I'm glad for the attendance, a full room tonight. So very happy to see all of you guys here tonight, and look forward to hearing what these guys have to say.
Okay, and then we have Tim Capello here from UC Riverside with the men's program. And it's his second year with the program there. He was 3 years as assistant prior, and he was a 3-year assistant at Syracuse. So maybe we can learn something about the East Coast as well. I know you can't talk about your own programs, but can you talk about others and IDs and things like that?
Yes.
You can? Okay, perfect. Okay, we're going to go into some things that you can't ask and what they can't talk about in a little while. But 300% increase in attendances since he went to UC Riverside, so that's quite an accomplishment. And Riverside is in the semifinals of the Big West tournament this Wednesday as well, so congratulations. Okay, you're not going to be hearing much from me. I'll be throwing some questions out and bullet points. The coaches here have got a basic agenda. We didn't go PowerPoint, so I want you to learn these guys' personalities and learn from them rather than always looking at sheets or looking at the PowerPoint. I will put lots of information on the Elite website within the next week where you'll see the whole process and rules you can and can't go about. But tonight, I think it's a chance for these guys, you can appreciate these guys. So, how to choose a school. And I don't know who wants to start here. We've got some bullet points on the sheets here, but what do you recommend for any young player, maybe a freshman, when they're first going out looking at what they want to do? Does anyone want to start with that?
I'll start. I think the first priority is academics. You always need to find an institution that's going to fit your academic interests. I think anytime you have a soccer program you're interested in and they don't provide the major that you potentially are interested in, it might not be the right fit. Additionally, we have some outstanding academic institutions here. Some of us may or may not fit that profile for that particular school. So I think the academic match for me is always going to be the first priority. And then beyond that, you could start looking into soccer programs and trying to find the right fit between the two. And then, of course, location, size, cost are always included. And but I think the 2 biggest priorities are certainly academics and then the soccer piece, and then all the other little ones can kind of fit in beyond that. And I'm sure these guys can speak a little bit more to that as well.
Yeah, I think one of the really important parts of choosing the right school is to look at your education, to look at the location, and to look at the size, the cost of the school. Sometimes the soccer aspect of it is kind of put towards the end of it, with the very true reality that at some point soccer might not be in the cards for you for different reasons. And so to make sure that as you choose a school, all the other aspects of what the education is going to be match who you are as a person, match what your finances are as a family, and then to be able to make those types of decisions usually can't go wrong.
Yeah, also about size. So you can look into its size in classrooms. You know, how big of a classroom do you want to be as students? You know, I went to a UC school. Now I work at a Cal State school. You know, at UC you have classrooms from 250 to 500. At our institution, it's kind of a little bit lower. You got a couple hundred classrooms. The other ones are 25 to 30, and you're kind of interacting with professors as opposed to teaching assistants.
And he did go to UC Irvine, by the way. He's in UC Irvine a lot. I want to clarify which UC he went to. So, along those lines, for me, it's kind of 3-pronged. It's education, participation, and location, kind of in that order. So on the education piece, like I said, ultimately you are looking towards the future, and that's difficult to do as a young teenager. But you're trying to figure out what you're going to do over the next 4 or 5 years that's going to set you up for your next 40 years of life. And sometimes you get to college and there's changes. You get into different majors, you kind of go a different direction, but you got to have kind of an idea of what you want to do. Secondly is participation. What level? And we'll get into a little bit more on the levels: Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA, junior college. There's different paths and different levels. You want to just go and be part of a program and be one of the rostered players, or you want to go to a program where you can contribute, right? And the last thing, and it's been mentioned already, is location. You want to be in an environment or locale where you're going to be happy not only in the classroom, not only on the athletic field or the soccer field specifically here, but in that locale. You know, you're a Southern California person. How are the surf classes at Baker? They were pretty good. We taught him. I know I say that to Ron because he loves to surf, and you know he's close to the coast now. But in the Midwest, if you're a beach person, you like hanging out by the beach, you're not going to find that in the Midwest or back east. If you don't like the snow, you know it's snowing 6 months out of the year in parts of the country. And if you're chasing the scholarship dollar, it might be the wrong reason why you're choosing that school. So, big picture.
One thing you hit on as well is getting some exposure to different places. You know, you may not know that maybe you do like the snow. You know, you grew up in Southern California and you haven't been exposed to that maybe other than, you know, going to Big Bear here and there. You know, maybe you enjoy going to hockey games where it is actually cold out. You know, you're not wearing shorts and a t-shirt. You know, maybe you like going to a football game and enjoying that sort of experience. So just getting out, especially at a younger age, looking at different schools. You know, whether it's a public school or a private school, whether it's a large institution as far as enrollment or a smaller one. You know, maybe you go to a small private school now, but you'd like to branch out and be in a place where you're meeting new people every single day. You know, so that's something to explore, especially early on. Get some exposure to different places and see what kind of catches your eye.
Yeah, I think I was fortunate to coach both men and women for 8 years, and particularly on the women's side, I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think women's soccer is the #1 collegiate sport where there's the most transfers. And you go to Surf Cup or whatever, and there's every coach from every corner of the U.S., and they're, you know, like they said, they're taking these Southern California prospects into places, and they're going on a lot of money, and they might be choosing that institution for the wrong reasons, and they end up transferring. And I think the advice here is really important that you do your you know, research and find, you know, I think your analogy there that the acronym is perfect. You know, education, participation, location. And I think if you do your homework and follow your heart, chances are good you're going to find the place that's best for you.
We're going to touch on unofficial visits and camps and that later on, where they can actually give you some insight about how you can go about the process as well. But Ron, I was actually going to say that fact if you hadn't stood up. I had a player a few years ago, I don't tell stories about myself, but a few years ago, school from Louisiana comes in, she's never visited the campus, offered her a full ride. And so, decent D1 program, but she didn't want to go visit. I don't want to go to Louisiana, that's her. She's a Riverside kid, she actually stayed in Riverside playing Division II soccer, and she's about to graduate this year and no regrets. So everybody's different, but don't just follow the scholarship dollars, make your decisions on everything the panel said. Okay, we're going to go into, everyone asks about levels. Is D1 better than D2? Is D2 better than D3? What are the differences? What is NAIA? Why should we go to junior college? And anyone want to start with what Division I is and levels and what they require student athletes to go to Division I schools?
Right, well, you ready? Okay, so I think the first thing to remember is that there are a ton of D2 schools that would compete on the soccer field with a ton of D1 schools. So in terms of it being competitive, it doesn't Division I doesn't exist here, and Division II exists here. There's very much an overlap. So Division I schools have more scholarships available. That's a big difference. The athletic departments are typically larger. Most of your big football programs that you see on TV, they're going to be Division I schools. But when you get into Division II and Division III, you've also got a lot of schools there that academically would compete at a much higher level than many Division I schools. So there's a lot of overlap there. When you get down to Division III, I think we're at a no athletic scholarship situation with Division III schools. NAIA is a different governing body altogether. So an NAIA school doesn't compete in NCAA competition. It also means that those coaches don't have to live, and the players don't have to live under NCAA rules. So the recruiting in the NAIA is a little bit like the Wild West, gunslinging and fighting in bars. No, just kidding. But it's there's a lot less rules on that kind of thing. Eligibility is a big rule that's different. You're going to see players, a lot more international players at NAIA schools. The eligibility to compete is there's a little bit more freedom. So you get players who are a little bit older. You might get a few more international players as well. When you look at NJCAA, you're looking at the junior colleges. In Southern California, we've got some really spectacular junior college programs. We recruit a lot from junior colleges. Some of our top players over the last few years have come through a 2-year school and transferred into a 4-year school. Sometimes players choose the junior college direction simply because they haven't found a fit at the 4-year in the 4-year path. But sometimes it's because of deficiencies academically, and they need a couple of years to build the academic side up so that they have a better chance to get into a 4-year school that they prefer. I guess the third reason to go the 2-year college direction is because it's way cheaper. You can save a ton of money going to junior college and transferring into a 4-year school. So that's an overview.
Thank you, Scott. Ron, anything to add there, having been in NAIA and now Division 2?
I think Scott said it pretty clearly. I think the NAIA, they're trying to close the gap on the eligibility. They've established an eligibility center, and now prospects are having to go through that process, kind of similar to NCAA Clearinghouse. But you know, NAIA schools are predominantly smaller schools, a lot of them religious affiliated, and there are some wonderful, wonderful schools out there in the NAIA, and I think, you know, regardless of the division, there's some outstanding institutions, and I think, again, it comes down to fit. But the NAIA, like Scott said, I mean, I've coached in it for a long time, and I've seen some really crazy teams on the men's side in particular that have had players that have, you know, played in Champions League qualifiers and, you know, represented their full national team. And we played a team one year that had their first 11 that appeared in their full national team, every one of them for their country. And so it's different. And that was a long time ago, and that wouldn't happen today because a lot of those guys wouldn't have been able to clear eligibility center. But that's kind of the NAIA.
Okay, what is the eligibility center?
For the NAIA?
Yep.
Well, it's similar to, in fact, interestingly, Chris, you know a player that played at Irvine that went to Germany for a couple of years, played 4th Division, apparently didn't get paid for it, but we tried to put him through the eligibility center in the NAIA, and they deemed him ineligible, that he's exhausted eligibility. But what I'm learning now is that, because we were onto him and other schools onto him, NCAA 2, NCAA 2 has apparently given him 2 years of eligibility. So interestingly, the NAIA has made a firm decision quickly that didn't deem him eligible. But it's weird. The NAIA is really interesting in terms of how they're trying to close the gap and trying to be more restrictive in terms of the student athlete and making it a more balanced field. But it's similar to the clearinghouse where you have to register, go in, input grades, input past experiences, and they put it all together and determine your eligibility. And generally, if you're a high school student athlete prospect, you'll get the 4 years eligibility. Transfers is what they really look at closely, and international players.
Regarding the eligibility center, and used to be referred to as the clearinghouse, there's 2 components to it. There's eligibility, and there's an amateurism question. How many of the prospective student athletes here are already registered with the NCAA Eligibility Center? Should be, at least some of you guys that are juniors and seniors by now, hopefully are already in the system, okay? It's really good to get in there early. You know, you're, like I said, on the eligibility side, you're tracking core course requirements. I think the minimum now for Division I is at 2.3. Yes, 2.3 and 16 core classes. And then what Ron was referring to was the amateurism component. And especially, and it's probably a little bit more prevalent on the men's side than on the women's side, but that threshold of crossing between a professional and an amateur, if you go and receive any type of compensation, soccer endorsements, playing and getting paid to play on an overseas trial, because guys are getting opportunities all the time, academy clubs and things. It's a very alluring to go and do that, but we had to reinstate a young man, you know, and Carlos can attest to this, that was a junior college transfer, had an extended tryout with the Kansas City Wizards at the time, and had to pay money back to the NCAA because it extended the 48-hour period that you could have a tryout. and so he had to pay money back just to clear his eligibility. So there are really strict rules. Division I and Division II NCAA certification are a little bit different. Ron was referring, you can go back and you can get semesters of enrollment or terms of enrollment. The D2 calendar or clock can be extended more so than the Division I calendar can be. And then if anyone wants to follow up with what that the 5-year clock might be.
I want to touch on when you go onto the eligibility center, there's, we talk about 16 core courses. You go on, there's a tab on there that you can click on and you can see what courses are core courses at your high school or local high school. So if any of you guys have any questions on that, you can go on there. All you do, I think, is your zip code and your high school name, and then you're able to click on it, and then you're able to find all your 16 core courses that, obviously, for the NCAA eligibility center.
Talking about length of eligibility, Coach Volk talked about your eligibility clock. So all of Division I student athletes have what are 5 years to play for. And so when you start into being a full-time student, which means you're enrolled and you're taking a full load of classes, you start your eligibility clock. They give you 5 years to finish your eligibility. And so many of you have heard of redshirting, yes? Basically being a part of the program, training and participating with the program, not participating in the games that are being played. That's saving you a year of eligibility to compete, so that now, and for so many different reasons, redshirting can be a really positive thing. It can give a player who's not ready for the speed of the game, the physical challenges of the game, to get better prepared. It can give a student the opportunity to get their feet underneath them in regards to the higher expectations of college education. You can redshirt during any part of your college career. It's not uncommon for a sophomore or a junior who might get hurt during the summer or even during the prior season to redshirt and then be able to maintain eligibility so that they can use their eligibility on the playing field. You do have the opportunity to come in as a freshman, play all 4 years, and if you are not yet done academically, many institutions do grant you what is considered a 5th year, which then allows for your scholarship to continue on so that you can receive all the full benefits of the scholarship that you had as a student athlete, so that if your eligibility clock has extended because of your 4 years of eligibility, in your 5th year, they allow you to keep that scholarship so that you can finish your degree.
Okay, we're just going to just move on here. Next thing I've got here is, what role does the PATS play in your child's education and recruiting process? And John, you can always chip in here. I believe our role is to train the player to the highest of their ability. That's the first thing we can do. The next thing we can do is guide you in the process. And through the years, as a coach, I've had kids crying in front of me when I've told them they can't play at Stanford, they can't play at UCLA. And the bottom line is, with these programs, if you're not national team or regional team, you're probably not going to get on the field. If you're just going to be on the roster and a walk-on, which we'll touch on later, hey, maybe. But any time the walk-ons at UCLA get on the field, it's one of the national team players in the U19 national team camp and things like that. So we're trying to be realistic with you. If you're not going to get on the field in a top 20 program, we're going to tell you. We're going to say, no, you can do it, and clearly you can't, you're wasting your time. If you want to go to that school and not play soccer, hey, go for it. You've got the academics, go for it. But our job is to guide you in the right direction if you really want to play soccer. First point of contact is your coach, then your area director, and also me. And then if I'm not getting it done, John. So we're here as a constant resource, and we have a lot of connections within the game. So please tap into what we do. But we'll also follow up with schools once you contact them, but say most of the process is on you as an individual, and try and get it on your child, because if you're doing all the letters, all the emails, everything, they're not accountable and they're taking everything for granted. But if they're putting in the time, they're invested in it, and you know they really want to go play and they want to go to school. So that's just my advice there. Anything that we do for them?
Yeah, no, just as Neil said, the first phase is the evaluation process. And that's something that you guys, you all pay a membership fee. You're gonna want the best information you can get. Sometimes the best and the most honest information isn't the information you wanna hear, but that's what we have to do, is be honest with you, try to give you a good path on what you should be looking for, and then it's, you know, it's up to us to provide the stage, it's up for you guys to perform and be seen. And, you know, as Neil said, we'll come in, we'll give you good guidance, we'll contact the school, we'll tell them a little bit about you, but, you know, one thing that I'm very, you know, strict with the coaches and the directors and anybody that's in the collegiate role for us is we don't pick up the phone and call a college and go, this is the best forward you'll ever have, you have to take him, blah, blah, blah. Those are things that we can't put our name on. The same way that if UCLA does come knocking, or UC Irvine, or some of the great colleges that we have here, and we feel that, you know, it's a bit of a jump for you, if it's something that they've truly come, they've evaluated you, they've seen the skill set, they've seen the qualities that they want inside their program, we're not gonna tell them, oh no, don't take this player either. So it truly is something that you guys perform on the stage. It's up to you guys then to create the connection here with the coaches, and then up to both groups then to find the right relationship moving forward for you guys. But we do everything we can. As far as a club, we're constantly evolving, trying to find different ways of showcasing you guys. We're working on different evaluation systems. We've got the elite program that we kicked off this year. We just started Pat's TV to help market you guys collegiately and in other areas. So these are all areas that we do everything we can to put you up on that stage. But then once again, it's up to you guys to perform after that, build the relationship with these guys, because these are guys that, you know, a lot of these guys I've known for 20-something years, and I want to know them the next 20 as we all continue in this business together. So it's not something that we can come and say, Chris, you have to take this forward. He's the best forward in the area. Well, you know what? I don't train the kids at Arsenal or Strikers or some of the areas. Who am I to say this is the absolute best player? I can say, hey, some factual information, led the high school in scoring, led our team in scoring, did certain facts that we can throw forward for them. But as far as us putting that impression on them, it's really up to us to showcase you guys, and then you guys do the impression, you know, all the impressing after that.
Okay, going to your role, how important are academics? Anyone want to take this one?
Yeah, like, very important. Yeah, like, I got into coaching to coach soccer, not to run around campus making sure that players are going to school and attending classes. So it's really, really important. It sounds really obvious, and I think there's a little misconception out there that if you're an athlete, a school will get you in. A school will just get you in. It's just not the reality. You know, there's certain, we might be able to help a little bit. We might be able to move your application and put the application on the right desk, but you still have to meet all the requirements. And frankly, if someone is only going to squeak in by the skin of their teeth into the school, as coaches, we have to be very wary of that situation, because you could potentially set yourself up for 4 years of a very difficult management of that player. So the type of academics that we're looking for are the student athlete that is going to be able to handle the difficult demands of the sport, but as well be able to handle many of those academic demands themselves. There's an awful lot of help for student athletes because of the demands from sport, but we're looking for the level of academics that people are going to be comfortable at your school, not just get by and just stay eligible. We're looking for you know, someone that's comfortable, I would say.
You've heard about some of the things in other sports, basketball, football. So many coaches are now, we're held accountable for our student athletes' academic progress. And if we bring in at-risk students who are on scholarship and they fall through the cracks and find their way out of the university, our APR scores can go down as a coach, and that can have a negative effect on our program in regards to loss of scholarship. As a coach, your APR, your academic progress report number goes with you, so if I were to leave my institution and go somewhere else, that number is going to travel with me, so my future AD would know this coach is good or not good at retaining his student athletes. And so for coaches now, I think so many coaches, not just in soccer, but in sports throughout NCAA, are taking fewer risks on student athletes because of the long-term effect it can have on our coaching career.
I think the thing to keep in mind as well, and Scott touched on this, is there is going to be a support system set up for the student athletes. And that's meant to be a resource because of the demands that athletics will have on your life. Because of the hours that you're going to be expected to put in on the field, in the weight room, on the road, traveling with teams, watching video. That takes a lot out of just the normal student life, right, that other students on campus wouldn't have to deal with. So the resources will be there, right? Tutors are available, academic counselors are available, but that doesn't mean that those tutors are going to go to class for you. Doesn't mean the tutors are going to take your exams or write your papers or anything along those lines. They will help guide you, much like the club will help guide you towards the institution that you're looking for. But at the end of the day, it is up to you to perform and handle your own business. And I think that's what we're all looking for as coaches. Our student athletes that are motivated to be successful on the field, but also successful in the classroom.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it in a little bit of a different direction, but you know, it's not good enough anymore to be just a good soccer player. It's not in today's world of being a college coach in any sport. And I think Damian, alluded to it, is that, we're being evaluated in so many different areas these days. And I know for me and my administrators, they are less concerned about our performances on the field than they are in the classroom and off the field. And I think that for me and a lot of colleagues I speak to in all these events, is that character is so important in you guys. And so when we're out evaluating you, first obviously we're seeing you as a player and seeing your attitudes, seeing how you behave on the field, and then we want to get to know you off the field and your families. Your academic profile is extremely important, but that character piece is so important, you guys. Every one of you need to pay real close attention to that, because we're always watching, and we're watching little things, and it's important because we want to make sure that the kids we're getting in our program have high character quality. So we don't have to, like Scott said, we don't have to worry about what you're doing away from the field. And I'm going to add one last piece to that, is that social media, you guys, is so crucial. It's, in fact, I was on the phone with a junior college coach the other day, and about a player that had contacted me, and he said that the kid in his social media account was just bashing the junior college program and the coach. And in fact, he sent me an email. I picked up the phone, I called him. He said, I just released the kid yesterday. And we talked through it, and he told me about that. And so it's difficult being a young person, because you tweet something or put something out there, and it's out there. And you may not have filtered it. And it's really, really important that you guys understand, once you put something out there, it's going to get out there and it's going to get found out. And so I just wanted to add that little piece, because it's important to our program and certainly to me.
Well, and that's something, I'm not sure if all of you guys have seen your player codes of conduct yet that just came out this year. That's something that's in both all the player codes of conduct, coaching codes of conduct, and the parental codes of conduct. Is there's a very strict social media clause in there. And it's not us trying to be controlling the message and what people are saying. It's more protection for yourselves. So that, a lot of times as 14, 15, 16-year-olds, you don't realize that this stuff's going to be an imprint that's going to be there 30 years from now if you write the wrong thing. So you definitely have to be careful with that, and that's one of the reasons why you see that on your code of conduct, that we do not like our constituents out there in the certain social media chat sites. I know they're out there. They can be fun. They can be entertaining. They can sometimes, occasionally be educational, but a lot of times they can be devastating to your future. So be very careful with what you do out there. You represent yourselves, and then also selfishly you represent the club. We don't want you saying those things as a representative of the club. One question I did have for you guys, we talked about the clearinghouses and the different eligibility centers and all the pressures of being a student athlete and going into thinking about all that stuff as you choose what college. But I know in the past with the difference in UC state schools, and what are the difference academically with the classes that Carlos had mentioned, the core classes that you need to make sure you have to get into each of these systems? And is it something that you can trust your school advisor to make sure you're on that right path? Or how much interaction should these parents have with their kids to make sure, look, if you plan on going to UC, you better take this track of classes. If you go to state school, you better make sure you have these track of classes, and the same thing for private.
So I'll touch on that. It recently just happened, being able to talk to your high school counselors. A lot of them know what it takes for you to get into the institution. A lot of times they don't know what it takes to get in and into the institution and be an NCAA compliant qualifier, which is the 16 core classes. So it's a big difference. You could be eligible to get into the institution, but and then you won't be able to be an NCAA qualifier. So that's saying, so for Cal State, as opposed to UC, we take visual performing arts. So, you know, if you have to take a visual performing art class in order to get into our institution. You know, I mean, for a UC,
It's required.
it's required as well now, so I mean, I don't know if it was required back then, but, I mean, never did it, but.
You transferred it as a AC
Yeah.
guy.
I didn't have to do it, so it's good, you know, so they take care of me. But like I said, so yeah, that's a big thing. So, you know, and a lot of times, you know, reaching out to your high school counselors, you know, sometimes they try to understand that you are going to be able to get into the institution, but then you won't be able to play because you're not NCAA compliant. So, you know, that's why we ask for your transcripts. We send it to us, we give it to our academic counselors, and then they evaluate and see, well, you're deficient in English, you're deficient in math, and you got to make room to make those up. You know, obviously at an online, at a JC, which counts for 2 semesters, or, you know, I think you get an opportunity in the summer to get some classes done as well.
A good example, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to add to that. I don't know if you guys know, I coach high school as well, and I had a high school counselor arguing with me about requirements for NCAA, and I had to get the academic guidance person, the top person at this out-of-state institution, to call the school and tell the lady she was wrong. And this is the rule, check this website, this is where eligibility is. So again, sign up with the NCAA clearinghouse, then you can see exactly what's what, you hit the clicks about what schools, you can do that. So go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, depending on the high school that you're at, you either have a lot of support in a counseling center or you don't. Some of the larger public institutions where, you know, enrollment's over 2,000, and they have a staff of 3 or 4 counselors, you can do the ratio of how many students those counselors meet with. So it's sometimes they do get lost in the shuffle, and the job of the counselors pretty much is to graduate kids from school. They're not necessarily preparing them to be student athletes at NCAA level or whatever level. So there's a difference, and back to the BPA class, you can be eligible for NCAA but not admissible to a university because you've missed a course that's required for admission status. Now, you could be admissible to the university but not eligible to compete as well. So there's 2 different sides to that. So ultimately, if there's enough resources out there, like Neil's saying, you go through your checklist. Have I done all this? Do a double check with the counselor and the information that you're giving to. Go to the institution that you're thinking about attending, and they can provide you that information as well. But really, ultimately, you're investing in your future. You want to check and double check that you met all those requirements and nothing slips between the cracks. And to be naive about the process, part of the reason why you're here tonight is to help educate yourself. But ask questions, get the answers you need to. So like Neil said, hey, he took it one step level and got the answer that he needed to because he wants to make sure he's giving the correct information. So.
Can I answer that or go a little bit further on that as well, John? So seniors, yes, lots of seniors. Juniors?
2015s.
Juniors, sophomores, freshmen. Awesome. So the NCAA is actually cracking down on the requirements to become a qualifier. You guys have all seen the movie Blindside? Yes? What happened in the movie Blindside won't happen now. And what that is now your 16 core courses, it used to be the rumor or it was said that what you did in your freshman year didn't count. It was only your sophomore, junior, and senior year. That's no longer the case in the sense that now with your 16 core courses, 10 of those core courses have to be done before you start your senior year. Meaning you can't in your senior year double up on things. And it's the way that the NCAA is making sure that student athletes or potential student athletes are on the right academic track to make sure that they're going to be successful at whatever institution. And so as we talk about UCs versus Cal States, regardless of where you're going to end up, UCs, privates, Cal States, the clearinghouse NCAA eligibility center now is making sure that with you, and it starts with 2016 prospects, that not only are you doing your 16 core courses, but you're doing them and passing them prior to the beginning of your senior year.
Okay, and then for some institutions, we haven't got any Ivy League schools here. That's the East Coast. That's the very high academic Division ones. We're talking your Yales, your Princetons, your Penns, all those schools. I've talked to those coaches quite a bit for my high academic players. If you haven't got at least a 30 ACT and a 4.0, you can't even get into the school. So again, back to the freshman year. If you mess up freshman year, bye-bye Ivy League. You can never catch up. So it's important from the time you step into high school to keep your grades up. I know with the UC system, you can maybe slide, like I think 4.0s are getting turned down academically, but with the soccer, maybe you can get in for less if you're a standout and the coach is going to trust you. Maybe they're seeing a rise in the standards. Am I correct there? Maybe, maybe not. But again,
The UCs are regarded as the Ivy of the West.
the Claremont colleges will argue with it, but that's different. But again, that's how important it is. Okay, should we move on? Sure. You guys done with that? So, other responsibilities of student athletes. Okay, we talked about social media. Some schools have a dry season, and if you don't know what it is, I'm not going to go into it right now. Other schools have certain requirements they need from their athletes. Study hall, you have to appear as a freshman at least, and into a sophomore. If you haven't got the grade, you have to do study hall. How many hours a week, Division 1?
It's not by institution.
Okay.
So,
What's the minimum for Division 1, for example?
I think right now we have organized doing 4 hours.
Okay, so that's in a controlled classroom doing extra study to make sure they're doing their homework. And it's a requirement to make sure they're still eligible. Because if they fall below, is it a 2.5 or 2.0 these days?
once again, it's institution-based.
Okay.
There are NCA requirements as far as making progress towards degree and minimum GPA, but every institution sets what their academic standards are. Every coach can set what their academic standards are, so they can hold the student athletes accountable that way as well.
That's good, because at the end of the day, how many players are actually going to go into the pros? I think it's 1% at tops. Something like that, 1% of student athletes actually end up in the pros. So the whole purpose of going to school is to get you a degree and to get a job and into the real world. So just never get away from that. They've touched on it, there's counselors there to help you. If you're struggling with the class, go get extra tutoring. I think it's free at most of these schools as an athlete. So there's all these things to help you to progress. What other responsibilities are there from student athletes that you guys may require?
Well, I guess during the season, it's up to 20 hours a week, and that 20 hours a week can be comprised of so many different things. Obviously, there's a lot of practice time. There's time in the weight room. It could also be everything from, I think, Tim was talking about video, travel to and from games. So that 20 hours can get filled up pretty quick. On top of that, the academic requirements, we started to talk about as well. I mean, it's like 35 hours. The institution, I think, publishes 35 hours is required study time. So you put that alongside your 20 hours required to be a student athlete, and you start to get a bit of a picture of what kind of a commitment being a student athlete is. So, yeah.
So basically, you better love it, otherwise don't do it, because this is your full-time job for 4, maybe 5 years. Okay, recruiting, which is why you're all here. Okay, we're going to touch on what you can do. Actually, as freshmen all the way through seniors, you could always write an email and call schools. Rules change as you get older. We're talking about NCAA Division 1 here more than anything. Rules change as you get older, what they can do back to you. They cannot call you back. Correct me if I'm wrong again, these things keep changing. They cannot call you back or email you back with anything except for camp information until you're juniors. Is that correct? Right. Okay, so if they don't get back to you, it's because they're not allowed. Just like these guys here can't talk about their individual institutions and sell themselves tonight. It's against NCAA rules. So as freshmen, sophomores, you can contact them. You can send them schedules. I'm going to put a sample first letter online so you can get an idea of what you write to the schools. My advice though, do not copy and paste. I got a call from Damien, and he'll probably remember this about 5 years ago. Please tell a certain Miss B that Cal State Fullerton is not in the city of Santa Barbara. So, copy and paste, change Coach Brown, change Fullerton, but I always want to live in Santa Barbara. So, when you copy and paste, make sure that you read it through, it's all the same font and you're writing to the correct coach. By the way, that kid ended up at Chico State. And did very well there, because it was the right fit for us.
Still not Santa Barbara.
It's still close to the mountain. So, again, got to be careful, make it specific. So I'll put one online. If you write to a school, tell them why you want to go there. Make sure they have the page you put in the email. Make sure you have the stats right. Make sure you have the coach's name right. Make sure that you're giving the correct information. Then you can add your schedules as you go in there as well. But so I'll put the sample letter on there. Now, as juniors, what can you do back to them now?
Now we're allowed to call.
Yeah, so rules just changed that allow us to call, email, kids in their junior year now.
Starting September 1?
Correct, correct.
Okay, so that's a brand new rule this year. As I say, things keep changing. They weren't allowed to call you back until senior year prior. Now they can. So they can call back, but it's only X amount of calls a week, am I correct?
And text.
It's one call.
One call per week is all they're allowed to. So if you don't pick up, they can't call you back again.
I think that's changing.
No, that's okay.
It's unlimited
It's
now.
unlimited. Yeah.
There you go. We've all learned something tonight.
So basically what's happened is NCAA is trying to deregulate and limit the amount of rules that we have to follow, making it so that the institutions have to police the coaches better. Too many different types of media out there, too many between Snapchats and Instagram, so many different things that if the NCAA was going to try to follow or police all of that, there's just not enough manpower or hours to do so. And so they've kind of deregulated it and allowed the coaches to call full-time, text, any type of communication that's there we can use now, which is brand new since the beginning of this year.
Which helps everybody out. But still, with the sophomores and the freshmen, tap into your coaches. We become agents. I probably shouldn't say this. I get calls from coaches, as is John. Tell this kid to call me between these hours. You can call as much as you like. Here's my cell phone number. Oh, cell phone instead of a landline in the office where they may not be. So again, we're the agents. They tap into us constantly. So understand that as well. But obviously, we don't have to do so much for the juniors anymore, which is great for us. As well as contacting, on that sheet you've got to put your jersey number, your game time, because every event you do, and if you do not contact the schools you're interested in, how many games do you watch on one single day of a college showcase perhaps? Okay, let's do Las Vegas, because it's got more teams than anyone. Las Vegas, Players Showcase, 300 teams there. How many games do you watch in a day?
I wouldn't say I watch a full game. So I watch, I'm sure many coaches are the same way. They watch segments of the game because of the amount of recruits that all of us coaches have to kind of spread ourselves out to be able to see. Obviously, if there's something that's important, I can imagine that coaches spend more time in certain places, but there's a lot of you and only 2 or 3 of the coaches that are able to go out and recruit.
But if you go to a game, who do you watch first? The kid that's written or just random kids?
I try to go to watch a game if somebody, come in the area and they're written, taking the time, then I'll stop by and peep, and see what it's about, if he's not playing, then, it's gotta move on to the next one, to the next game, to the next field, to the next half, keep moving.
So if you've written and you've got your jersey number, basically if they show up at a field and they know what number you're wearing, you've written to them, they'll probably go in their database and they can see you first. If you're not, they'll probably see 1,000 kids a day. So you're just a needle in a haystack. So make sure you follow your schedules as well. Anyone else anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think the landscape of recruiting has changed so much in the last 10, 12 years, 10 years for sure. I think that, in the past we would go watch games and recruit players and go out and recruit players. Now it's more a two-way street, and I think most of us if we get an email from a player that appears interesting on paper, we're likely to go look at them and take a peek at them for sure. And I think that, you know, I always think the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If somebody's persistent enough, I'm thinking, wow, this player really wants to come to the school that they're, you know, looking at. The coach is likely to go out and see that kid play. Kid likely will, you know, be more committed to that particular program at the end. But I think it's important for you guys to really do the recruiting on your end as well. In the past, it was, we're coming to your door. Now it's much more a two-way street in the recruiting process that I've seen.
How many of the prospective student athletes here have sent an email with a player profile to a college program? Just one in the room? Two? Yeah, be proud. Put your hand up big and high. Come on. Get you guys involved here a little bit. Okay, how many of you sent a video clip? Any video clips? Okay, a couple video clips. That's good, because the reality is like Coach was saying, there's only 2 or 3 on the staff that can go out at any event, and there's so many different gaming circuits now, you can't get to all these different events. But if there's something in a 3 to 5 minute little clip that catches a coach's eye, and then you list your references, the coaches, coaching directors and things like that, then now they can start following up, hey, okay, and then you can start the dialogue of, okay, when are you gonna be out? Give me an opportunity to see you play. But same thing, you know, we don't have, I mean, you know, full game clips. You know, coaches don't have that much time sitting in their office on top of all the administrative work that they have to do to watch full games, even to be in an event to watch a full game. So it might be little snippets here and there. Going back to what Neil said also, in those video clips, okay, there's different companies. You can pay premium dollar to have a recruiting service do it nice, and all this nice presentation and sound effects and music and all that stuff. You can do a YouTube clip, do your own video. But in that, make sure that once again, number, jersey, if you have a little highlighting feature that you can single that person out, then that's great. Often we get clips, and we're more impressed with the opposition because we don't know who we're watching. So it happens that way, it's true. We all kind of joke about that, but we all get those clips all the time. So, you know, make sure you're providing the correct information, but video clips are helpful, but limit the content to what you're sending. So.
And that's one of the things too that, you know, we're going to continue to try to find ways of helping you guys provide that type of information, those video clips. We've got our Pats TV thing. One of the things we're working on right now is the college profiles for the teams that have done the videoing, to be able to upload college profiles or personal profiles so that people can see it related to the video, have it tie right to the video that you're on, and then the coaches can have easy access to see you play in whatever amount of games that we have documented. Now also, one further step that we're going to take is, you may have seen on there where we have individual packages where you can have your son or daughter filmed throughout the entire game. One of the things we want to do is, if the game's being filmed by a main camera, the sub camera that would be following your son or daughter, we're going to do like a picture-in-picture. So now as a college coach, you'll be able to watch the game, but then also the player that wants to be identified, that may have sent in that video, that might be piecing, you know, the different clips together, it will have them highlighted in the corner. So you can see what they're doing on the ball, off the ball, at all times, every second that they're on the field. So now, you know, as they said, sometimes they get drawn to other people inside these videos. Well, this is one way for you guys to showcase yourself and to have your, you know, have a blown up picture that's spotlighted and really show what you do throughout the game, and maybe not just the 2 minutes that the ball ends up around us. But we'll also work on putting together and taking all this information in and figuring out the right way to put together highlight videos for you guys and how to send them out and how to give access to these guys also. As far as, hey, these are the different clips that we have, here's how you find it, and, you know, here's where we go from there. So.
Is it worth using your recruiting service and paying $3,000 to $4,000?
I think that's a personal decision, you know, for every family. But, you know, I think, once again, I think a lot of the coaches have said it tonight, is it's you as a prospective student athlete and you being invested in your future and being the communication piece. Services are great, but if we're only getting those generic template type forms and it's not personalized, we get that feeling as well, okay? So once again, I think that's a personal choice. Some people have the resources to do that. And like I said, they look great, but if it's not personalized, I think it loses a little bit of its effectiveness.
Okay, next thing I've got is, you guys probably get it as well, email blasts, ID camps. Come to this ID camp here, and there's 30 college coaches. Then you get the ID camps run by, let's say, Cal State San Marcos. How valuable are the ID camps to you guys to actually spot players? Both the ones where you're invited to go work for independent companies and your own.
Yeah, I mean, I think ID camps are kind of a real hot trend and have been for the last couple of years. I think it's each institution's ID camp is important. I think what you usually get is the staff of that particular school that's investing in the sessions and giving hands-on experience with that staff. I think another one's a valuable one where you go to an institution and there might be half a dozen coaches from different schools. And you might be able to get exposure to 3 schools that you're interested in one ID camp. So I really think, I hear a lot of parents say, oh, it's just a fundraiser. For sure it is. It's a way for us to generate money for our programs, but it's also an important mechanism for you guys to get out and get on the campus and get in front of those colleges in a more intimate setting, and maybe ask some real important questions and get a feel for that coach's personality rather than a coach showing up at a tournament and watching you play. So I really believe in them. I think they're terrific, and I think they're great ways for both the coach and the player to get to know each other.
I think the camps also are, just like you were saying, just another avenue to get yourself exposed. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe D2 players are allowed to go and have a tryout with the schools. Division I, that's against the rules. You're not allowed to go and have a tryout or a recruiting weekend. So this is sort of the Division I way around that rule, is to establish this camp. So if it's an institution that you're really interested in, and maybe you're trying to decide between 2 or 3 different places, and you know what, I want to go and jump in a session with that coach so I can get an idea of how he really is at running the session. What is his personality like on the field? How is he going to communicate with me as a player? Those ID camps offer you that opportunity. And it offers us an opportunity to evaluate the player's training habits. So we can go watch you at a Surf Cup or in a league game, or whatever the event is, at a Pats Cup. All right? But maybe getting to actually work with you hands-on really tells a story about who this player is and the type of player that we're going to be working with on a day-to-day basis within our program. So I definitely think there's a lot of positive to ID camps. I think you just need to do your homework as to which ones you want to attend, which programs you're actually interested in, and maybe which ones get you the best exposure.
I would just add that there's probably 3 stages of a recruitment process that the ID camps can help us. We have players that show up at our ID camps. We've never heard of them before, and there are players that are on our roster that an ID camp has been the first time that we've ever been exposed to that player. There are other players that attend our ID camps who we've known about for a long time, and we might be recruiting 3 or 4 players in that position. And the ID camp is just that last opportunity for us to get that working relationship, to figure out exactly what that player's like, how coachable are they, is it a fit personality-wise, and we've made final decisions based on those experiences we've had with players in that environment. We also have players that are already committed to come into play for us, come back again and again to attend the camp. They're doing it because they want to further their relationship with the coach. They want to invest in themselves and their opportunity to be ready when they arrive as a freshman. And that's awesome for us because those players that we're trying to make decisions on are on the same field with players that are already committed to that school. So we get a side-by-side on the same field experience with those players. So I think it can be impactful for you at a number of different times in the timeline.
I think with camps, if you just see camp, and there's, I'm not going to name any names, but there's some large institutions that run camps, and the kids that show up are between 9 and 14 years old. But that camp, understand, is not an ID camp. It's a camp to raise money for the program. Correct me if I'm wrong here. ID camp, the actual staff are there, not just outside people that just employed. An ID camp is where the actual staff of the college are there to see you. So just make sure you understand the difference as well. Yeah, that's important.
And that's something also that we'll be doing from the club side of it is we plan on putting ID camps together throughout the year for you guys. Well, the first one will probably end up being in March, just off of the high school season, since you guys are all getting ready to kick that off, and that's now going to become your priority. for at least a couple months. So what we're planning on doing is, Mike Ditta will be helping Neil head it on up, and we'll have it in March, and then another one in June, and then we'll gradually start building these out throughout the year, because, as they said, there's different environments that you're trying to get in front of. We don't want to have certain players go and get put in front of the top D1 schools if that's not what their level is. It's great if they want to go, get the experience, but they're not going to get anything to benefit them collegiately from that. So what we'll try to do is have different stages of camps where you get to see the local coaches at some of them, some of the NAI coaches in Division III at some of them, and then some that have Division I and Division II, so that now you can kind of cater your experience to what it is you're looking for. Maybe that might be the eye-opener that it takes, is to go to that and realize, gosh, I'm not at that level, or, you know what, I really am at that level and I need to, keep pursuing it. So we're going to continue to try to do it. These guys have great, camps at their schools that we'll continue to send you the information on, let you know which ones, we feel are the right ones to go to, which ones, you might want to steer clear of, and then we'll also try to provide the same here from the clubs. So once again, get you guys showcased as much as possible.
Okay, we've just got a couple more things to touch on tonight. Unofficial visits, official visits, what are they? How important are they?
Unofficial visits, well, we'll start. Official visits are, at least for women's soccer, I know are becoming kind of a thing of the past because of what the recruiting process has become. For a number of different schools, the recruiting process is happening a lot faster. Official visits can only happen during the course of your senior year. That is a visit when a university, or I should say the program, is financing that trip, that visit to the school. You have a 48-hour window of time to spend on campus. The university has the opportunity to pay for a flight if it's an out-of-state school that you're visiting. They can put you up in the hotel, they can put you in the dorms or with the players. They can provide meals and things such as that. For complimentary tickets as well for sporting events. Again, that's an official visit, and that happens only during the course of your senior year. Official visits can happen at any time during the course of your high school career, beginning as early as your freshman year. Official visits, there are, unofficial visits, there's no limit to the amount of unofficial visits that you take to any one institution. An unofficial visit can be as much as showing up to a Friday night game at a school, talking to the coach an hour before they go down to talk to their team and get ready for the game, and then staying and watching the game. That would be considered an unofficial visit. During the course of an unofficial visit, you are allowed complimentary tickets by being on the recruit pass list. Again, unofficial visits I think are extremely important, especially for people here in Southern California with as many schools that you have around you, whether it be an NAIA school like Vanguard or Concordia, Division I schools like Irvine, Fullerton, you can go into San Diego and hit 3 very good Division I schools, another Division II school, with as many different opportunities as you have here in the local area to take as many unofficial visits as you can so that you can get a good appreciation for the different schools in the area, the different levels of the schools and the sizes of the campuses. I know it's not uncommon for coaches to be in their offices and have a knock at the door and be introduced to someone who they had never met, who just happens to be on campus and found the coach's office and would like to introduce themselves and talk for a couple of minutes. And for the recruiting process, that might be a great way to express the initiative that you might have in that university to that coach. And so in that regard, unofficial visits can be very useful.
Anything to add? We'll move on again. How often, well, what is a walk-on, and how often do walk-on players get on the field generally in NCAA soccer?
Well, that term is kind of thrown around quite loosely. I think we talk about recruited non-scholarship players. We make that difference. Walk-on kind of sounds like you just got admitted to the school and you showed up at practice one day and then joined the team. That has never has never happened in the 8 years that I've been at UC Irvine. It's very difficult to do that. But we do have players that we recruit, even when we have no scholarship money left for that class. We've had, I can tell you numerous stories about success stories of players that have come in as non-scholarship players and become senior captains of some of our best teams. We just had a goalkeeper finish up her senior year. She's a walk-on. She played 5,144 minutes for us. She started 55 games, which is just incredible stats for a goalkeeper to come into a Division I program as a walk-on. So they're really, really important for us. Once players arrive on campus, one of my players actually asked me this in an individual meeting today. Does it matter whether someone's on a scholarship or not? Whether you want to play them on the field or not? The answer to that is absolutely not. It really doesn't matter what scholarship you're carrying. I think we're all motivated by developing competitive programs. And part of that is winning on the field. So we're really not motivated by anything but that when it comes to selections and stuff. So you go in and typically you'll have just as big a shot as somebody that's on a full scholarship if you're a walk-on. I'm sure these guys would have hundreds of stories to share with you.
Well, and I think we're kind of heading down the path as far as scholarships. On the men's side, Division I, the maximum is 9.9 scholarships. You can have a roster of 30. You can do the math. Call it 10 if you want. NCAA reduced it by 10%. It used to be 11. That's why you got 9.9. But 30 players. How do you spread around scholarship money when you've only got 10? It becomes like salary cap. You got to spread it out a little bit. So women's maximum Division I is 14. Okay, so even then, say a program has 30 on the roster, that's only half. If you gave 14 full rides or 10 full rides, how do you make it work with the rest of the roster? So you got to take that money and place it where the needs of the program are, and hopefully maybe where the needs of the family are. But I know for a lot of institutions, financial aid becomes a huge component in trying to piece it together. Work study programs, loans, different things. Some families have saved and prepared for college, but as you know, as parents, most of us are your parents, and not quite yet, Carlos. I know Scott and his wife are expecting their first. Congratulations. Tim, not quite yet, down at the end. But my point is this, is that college is becoming more and more expensive. And sometimes it's easy to plan for and not so much. And you have to be creative on how you piece it together. But if you're looking for that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and that full scholarship, they're far and few between. They really are. And Neil said earlier on, if you are a national team player or somebody who's been there, then you're considered kind of a blue chip type player. But most of the time you're having to piece it together to make it work. So
I'll touch on the financial aid aspect. As we're all different in many ways. Obviously, as parents, how much financially you make or other parents make. So if you go on the website, it's a FAFSA forecaster. You type in your parents' taxes and so forth, and they give you an evaluation of. They're gonna give you a number of how much your parents can actually contribute to college. For myself, mine was a 0. So that's kind of pieced up. I got a lot of government money and then a partial, soccer scholarship that we pieced together in order for me to be able to attend that institution. So you got to look into that. Obviously, and that's a good website to go and check and submit your taxes and so forth, and you'll get a good number estimated.
And on most institutions' website, you can go right to the financial aid webpage or and that link, and then that information's right there. It's just a calculator. It's an estimator calculator. It's not tried and true because numbers change and your returns change and things like that, but it might help you.
Okay, so the academics the scholarships you're talking about, 9.9 and the 14, is that athletic only? So academic money, can you maybe have a 20% soccer and a 40% academic?
Depending on the criteria of that academic award and how that institution classifies that award and what the requirements are, it could be matched up. Other times they won't allow it. So it sort of depends on how the institution justifies that.
Yeah, that's correct. And then merit scholarship or academic scholarships are hard to come by. And you have to be that top percentage in your class, valedictorian, 4-point, whatever, you know, ACT score, SAT score, so institution, but go to the financial aid page, dig really deep, and there is money out there. There are a lot of scholarships that go unclaimed, millions of dollars, that never get utilized. So it's out there. You have to be resourceful and find where the aid can be, so.
And for those of you that are looking into Ivy League, they do not have athletic scholarships. Many coaching friends that coach in the Ivy League, as opposed to offering an athlete a scholarship, they can try and offer them early admission, so they can try and help them get into a Cornell or a Yale or a Princeton. So that is kind of their scholarship offer, but they do not offer actual financial aid or athletic scholarship.
And the other thing, they're talking about percentages. The other thing you've got to bear in mind is how much a school costs. A lot of private schools, there's a beautiful one in Malibu on the beach, I won't name the name of it, everyone knows it. It's $60,000 a year. So if they offer you 50%, you're still paying $30,000. Most of these schools in this table, that's how much it costs to go there. So if they offer you 10%, it's actually cheaper to go here. So again, I'm not selling them, I'm just saying do your homework, see how much it costs, because they give you a percentage of their fees. So very, very important there. Anything to add, anything on this list before we go to a Q&A?
Yeah, just on the scholarship part, it's 3 parts with athletics. It's tuition and fees, room and board, and books. What you'll see a lot of times on respective sites, they're gonna give you additional expenses, transportation, insurance, so they'll inflate that cost a little bit. So there are other additional expenses, more than what an athletic scholarship will cover also. So be prepared for those additional costs.
Okay.
You guys had, mentioned the finances and the bitter reality of, college soccer and the price that it takes to go to one of these institutions. What are some of the other benefits being a student athlete? I know it's not always about the scholarship. There's a lot of other perks that come along, whether it's the, early enrollment in the classes, certain perks around campus, et cetera. So it might not just be the finances that draw the people there or the education, but there's other perks that come along with being a student athlete.
Yeah, I think the priority registration is a massive one. In today's universities are impacted in many schools, and I think it's taking student athletes or students in general longer to graduate. And getting priority enrollment, priority registration allows you to have an opportunity to select classes and to matriculate and get through your education sooner. I think that's a huge benefit. Alluded already is the student services that you would get as a student athlete in terms of tutoring and academic services. I think there's another side to it as well, that student athletes are held to a higher responsibility. I think you're going to be flying the school's colors and representing them on the athletic field, and I think that comes with a bigger responsibility. So it is two things. You get benefits in a lot of ways, but it's a big responsibility. It's an honor and a privilege to represent that school, and it's really important that you don't take that for granted, because you really need to represent yourself on and off the field in top class fashion to get those benefits.
Okay, what we'll do is we're going to go to a Q&A now. I think we'll limit this to, 10-minute Q&A because I think we're all hungry. But understand, with the Q&As, they cannot answer, Ron, is this true about you as well? It is now as well. Okay, so they cannot answer questions about themselves or their own program. It has to be generic. So it's very important. They can just say no answer, can't do it. So who wants to start off? Yes.
So my son attended 2 IB camps over the summer and was instructed really not to interact with any of the coaches or not to talk to them too much. So I guess I don't know why that was, because we all kind of mentioned it would be good to talk to you guys. So do you know why?
Well, those coaches did. Sorry, Chris, go ahead. Sometimes you have coaches that are just there observing, and that's a very different thing to a coach that's actually a clinician.
They were doing the training.
They were doing the training?
Yeah.
I have no idea what
Okay.
they were talking
I
about.
think maybe he misunderstood, but
Well, where did the communication come from as far as not being able to communicate with
the director of the camp.
the director of the camp?
I don't want to name names either.
I'm not asking.
Okay.
Next question, yes.
When, boys soccer, are those kids actually recruited? Where in their academic, juniors, seniors?
I think it's getting earlier. The women's game was a lot earlier than the men's, but I think the men's is starting to catch up. But I would say to be comfortable, their sophomore, junior year is when the process usually begins. Sometimes it's finished by their junior year, sometimes it leads into their senior year. It kind of varies, but it is speeding up.
On the end there.
My daughter's a freshman. Is it too early to start sending tapes or things like that, or do you really don't want to see those until they're a junior or a senior?
I think a lot of coaches go through the process of identifying potential prospects. That's different than, I think, really getting out and recruiting people, but at least to know where players are, what players might be interested in us. The idea of identifying makes sense, and so at the freshman age, they're considered prospects, and so if they are already motivated and organized to be sending things like that out, I know that it's a part of the process that's starting to happen a lot now.
I'd say that, I would just follow up and say the top 5 schools in the country are actively recruiting 8th grade and 9th grade players.
On the women's side.
Gentleman over there.
Yeah, kind of following up to the other question, is there a general timeline? I mean, you've already talked about making sure that you're in the eligibility center. I'm trying to understand all the wickets that you need to go through in the proper process order. And I've done a lot of researching online, and I have yet to see a listing that says here's the kind of things that you should be doing when. There's a few things here and there, but when you look at them, some of them contradict each other. Others of them are complementary, and it's actually just confusing.
I think it is confusing because every recruiting process is unique. We might be introduced to a player in her senior year of high school. The recruiting process might involve one of our coaches flying to Northern California, watching her play in high school. She can visit a matter of days later. And if it's the right fit, that recruiting process could last 2 weeks, and that's something that we've had experience of. There's also players that you recruit for a period of time that's greater than 12 months. It could be 18 months from your first engagement with that player and the family to the decision that they make. And the decision that they make at the end of that 18 months doesn't necessarily mean that they're coming to your school. So it's very difficult to have a standard timeline because everything's so unique and at both ends of those extremes, I think.
Things that you could be proactive though is get into the, register early with the NCAA Eligibility Center. Get in that system already, at least tracking the academic side. Like Damien said earlier, if someone's motivated enough to put together a bio, get that communication out there, and if anything, it's going to go into a camp database, and you're going to get correspondence from those institutions over there, and it just keeps that community. So every time that young man or young lady's information comes up, oh, I've seen this name multiple times now, right? So either they're mass marketing themselves to all these institutions, or they're really interested in your institution as well. So.
John and I were just saying that to help you guys with freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, we'll put it on the website. We'll give you, okay, this is when you should be doing these things as well. So we'll try and guide you with that. Again, but these always help us see how we can help you as well moving forward. Thank you in the front, Jim.
Yeah, I just had a question about D2, women's D2. What are the requirements for SAT and ACT scores?
Well, it depends on the institution. For admissions, every institution is different. And for eligibility, you have to have, like Damien said, 2.3 in core classes, 16 core classes, and I believe it's an 870 combined math verbal, I want to say, Division 2. Like 2.3 with the 16 core classes.
The admissions status, you're talking eligibility or admissions?
They're two different, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's 2.3 in the core, 16 core courses plus an 8, I want to say it's an 870 combined math verbal. Admissions is different though, so admissions to the university could be totally different than the eligibility.
A little sliding scale, higher GPA, lower test scores, and vice versa.
Ken, and just adding to that, they keep saying different institutions are different. You've got your Cal State schools, then, for example, you've got a UC San Diego, and I did throw a name in there because that school doesn't do that much recruiting, they rely on kids coming to them. They won't really look at you if they don't have a 4.0. So again, there are schools like that. So NCAA Division II is just a big umbrella. Every institution is different. Yes.
Like a lot of colleges I've talked to, that they're like trying to AI, but they like also show like D2. Is there like a difference in like competitiveness of it, or?
Gosh, a lot of schools are doing that, huh?
A lot of schools are. We're in transition at the moment. And I think, again, across the board, I think there's some really strong schools at all divisions. And I'll say that your best teams are NCAA Division I, by far. But there is overlap all the way down to Division III, and even in the junior colleges, there's some outstanding junior colleges. In California, the junior colleges can't offer scholarship, but out of state, for example, there's a school in Arizona that has won so many national championships, and they have full scholarships on the boys' side, and they just, I know there's a lot of coaches that if they can't qualify for their school here, they'll send them to this school. After a year or two, then they come back. But the overlap is at every level in terms of the competitiveness.
Next question? Yes, in the back there.
Is there a benefit of going to an out-of-state school? Like tuition, being an out-of-state student, to go to another state?
I'll just use the UCs in general for an example. It's like 3 to 1. California residents are roughly 12, which is strictly tuition, 12, 13 roughly. Out of state's 3 times that. So private institution, it's the same price. In-state, out-of-state doesn't matter. So I know when we're recruiting, the dollar goes a little further with the California resident than it does for somebody that's out-of-state or international. So, and with your limited resources, if you're looking at somebody that's, are you talking to somebody that's prospective coming from out, or somebody that's in California looking to go outside of California?
Looking to go out.
Yeah, you would have to look up to see if there's anything different when you're going from California to another state. There's some institutions, what do they call it, WUI?
The WUI,
Yeah, somebody, yeah.
So I mean, like, so with the WUI, it's like Bakersfield, they could get in-state for Arizona, right? And I know like the Florida schools get all the Caribbean islands in for in-state as well, so that's a perfect example of that.
Okay, yeah, that'll be on their individual websites. Again, I'm not going to name names here, but I've sent a number of players in the last few years out of state for cheaper than they can go in-state because of the WUI, on top of some financial aid, if you like, and on top of some soccer money. So again, every individual school is different, so there are some benefits, but the WUI is just it's an agreement with the state of California, they'll offer the same rate. So that's what that is.
There's a lot of institutions that may want to increase their demographic of a certain region or a certain cultural background or something on that campus. So they may look to recruit out of a certain area of the country to bring students in. So, I mean, I'm from New York, I coached in New York, I played school in New York. A buddy of mine who's a D3 coach in New York right now, who Division III doesn't offer scholarships, is looking to tap into the California market because his school has said that they want more California residents on their campus, and that's a state school. So they're looking to, even though it costs more, they can find university money, university grants to offer those students to come in. So you'd have to do your research and find what's available.
I think I add to that is that sometimes it might be more cost effective to do the research because you can become an in-state resident after 1 year in a lot of institutions out of state. So I think that do the cost comparison of what it would be to have the WUI or the exchange for the 4 years or 5 years, and what it would be like once you get in-state tuition, and evaluate that, do a cost comparison of that, and then that will help you out with that.
A lot of different residency requirements though, and they fluctuate from institution to institution.
Yes.
Is it more difficult to go into a university soccer team from a junior college, being that your roster would probably go professional?
I mean, I went through the junior college route. Obviously, I had some interest from NAIA, Division II schools. my ultimate goal was to play Division I. I was fortunate enough to play at a middle of nowhere school and do well and get recruited. But it all worked out. It just depends. Obviously, when you go to that school, you got to look at what programs are producing guys transferring to the next level, depending Division I, II, or III, NAIA. I was fortunate enough. I did well. Won a state championship, and I was being able to recruit. This guy was at one of my games, so.
See, Carlos knows he can brag all about his alma mater. I just can't promote the institution. So he can say, and I'm going to put it right now. John is a UC Irvine alum too, so I'm just stating the facts right now. It's not self-promotion about the university. But no, regarding junior colleges, here's something that is, I think, as a coach, is the benefit of a junior college. Is you have a 17 or 18-year-old young man, maybe young lady, depending on the gender, that goes to a junior college, maybe is not physically ready to go on to the demands of playing at a Division I level. They come in more mature, they come in with 40 to 50 games of experience versus coming into a program, redshirting that first year and taking a whole year of development. Now, and sometimes it's a need, it's need-based by position, and you get an individual that comes in. And the other thing too is they know they've only got maybe 2 years left to finish out they're going to come in a little bit more motivated and hungry to play at a high level, pursue their degree. So I mean, some coaches varies from institution. They don't want to work with a junior college individual. That's a personal choice. But I know a lot of programs have had a lot of success with junior college players. So, and for all the different factors, the junior college can be a good route to get to your ultimate education and academic goals. So,
any more questions? Okay, yeah, in the back there.
What is the website all this information is on?
Okay, we're going to post a lot of this information on the PATS website in the coming weeks. We're just going to do it right and make it look good. But that'll be here in the next few weeks. But also, we'll put the links to the clearinghouse and the eligibility centers and all those things on there as well. So that'll be available to you very, very soon.
But you said there was something called an elite program?
If you check out the PATS website, the elite program that we started this year, there's a little icon on the top next to where the chapters is. We'll put it there, and then we should probably put a college-bound separate icon as well. I think we can do that so it's not so confusing. But I say, again, we're trying to build this and try to help you out as much as we can. Okay, we'll take one last question if there's any more questions.
all right, who's got the best question in the house right now? Last one.
We've only heard from one player. Is there another player that has a question? Okay, I guess not.
Well, actually, mom's handing it off to son. So come on, speak up. Mom's giving you the question. Okay, go ahead. You ask. Too much pressure. Go ahead.
As a student athlete, probably average, what's their academic grade? Is it a regular full 60 minutes?
The same as everyone else's. I mean, we adjust it. We might try and figure out something that's a little lighter during their championship season and a heavier load at a different time of year. So we'll help them adjust and, with their opportunity to register the classes earlier, we can then fit classes around practice schedules as well. So
Minimum term to term, minimum 12 minutes. So
it's arguably harder than the regular student because we're under. You have to show progress, certain progress towards your degree.
There's other ways as well. Here we go, let's write a name here. Texas Tech. They require you to do summer school prior to your first 2 years. So prior to freshman year, prior to that, to help you graduate. Other institutions will redshirt somebody that's not quite there academically as a freshman year to make sure they can be eligible for the next 4 years. So again, it can take 5 years. Yes, sorry for playing someone else.
You can mention into this now here.
So anyway, there's other ways of getting through it. But the other thing, if you start playing out of a class, and you're only doing your minimum 12, you're not eligible. So some schools will make you do your 16. Correct?
Yeah, and the other thing is semester institutions versus quarter school, right? how many units are you doing in an academic year? You know, mom and dad want you to finish, get your degrees in 4 years. Some of you stretch it out to 6 years because it's the best 6 years of your life. But it all adds up. It costs more money, right? So.
Okay, I'd like to, hopefully that's answered most of your questions, and we'll get the information out to you, but I'd just like to thank everybody here for and the participation from you guys has been fantastic as well, so hopefully everyone's